I want to talk about Venezuela, Madam Vice President, because the opposition has tried many ways to remove Maduro from power, including elections, where the opposition got 70% of the vote against 30% of the vote for Maduro, but still he remains in power. He refused to leave. Now, as the United States have been putting pressure on the regime, do you think that justifies the pressure and the possible action of the United States?
I strongly believe the American government should not be attempting to change regimes around the world. The American people do not want to go to war and do not want to go to war in the Caribbean, do not want to send American troops to fight this fight, whatever this fight is that Donald Trump thinks that he has the sole authority to wage.
Breaking news tonight, former Vice President Kamala Harris has came out and blasted the Trump administration over the capture of Nicolas Maduro and is calling it unlawful and unwise. She posted to X and acknowledged that Nicolas Maduro is a brutal and illegitimate dictator, but said that President Donald Trump's actions in Venezuela do not make America safer, stronger, or more affordable. She goes on to say that Maduro is a brutal, illegitimate dictator does not change the fact that this action was both unlawful and unwise. We've seen this movie before. Wars for regime change or oil that are sold as strength but then turn into chaos. And American families pay the price, she says. Now, she is making these remarks hours after the Trump administration confirmed that Maduro and his wife were captured and transported out of Venezuela as part of the Operation Absolute Resolve. Kamala Harris is also accusing Trump and his administration of being motivated by oil interests rather than efforts to combat drug trafficking or promote democracy. She continues with her X post. She says, the American people do not want this and they are tired of being lied to. This is not about drugs or democracy. It's about oil and Donald Trump's desire to play the regional strongman. She continues, if he cared about either, he wouldn't pardon a convicted drug trafficker or sideline Venezuela's legitimate opposition while pursuing deals with Maduro's cronies. Kamala Harris is considered to be rumored a potential Democratic candidate for the 2028 presidential race and additionally accused the president of endangering U.S. troops and destabilizing the region. She says the president is putting troops at risk, spending billions, destabilizing a region, and offering no legal authority, no exit plan, and no benefit at home. America needs leadership whose priorities are lowering costs for working families, enforcing the rule of law, strengthening alliances, and most importantly, putting the American people first. Maduro and his wife both arrived at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn late this evening, Saturday, after being transported by a helicopter from the DEA in Manhattan after being processed. As always, I will keep you guys up to date with the latest news, so follow along for more.
Hello, good people. I hope that this 5th day of 2026 is going well for you from any part of the world that you are watching today's video from. So recently, the Vice President Kamala Harris made a strong statement criticizing former U.S. President Donald Trump. She emphasized that the U.S. has a responsibility to respond not just with political rhetoric, but with action that considers humanitarian needs, democracy, and regional stability. Harris highlighted the ongoing suffering of Venezuela citizens due to economic collapse, political repression, and shortages of food, including medicine. In her remarks, Harris directly challenged the tone of Trump, saying that it was harmful and oversimplified. She argued that a responsible foreign policy must prioritize human rights and practical solutions, and not just slogans or threats. Essentially, she positioned herself as advocating for careful, principled leadership, contrasting it with what she views as reckless or performative statements from Trump. Her statement matters because it signals how top U.S. leaders are framing foreign crises and shaping public discourse. By speaking out, Harris isn't just addressing Venezuela. She's showing that the US approach to global conflict has moral and political consequences. Her words are likely to influence both policymakers and the public debate, particularly in communities paying close attention to international justice and US accountability. Welcome back to Polito Realities, a channel that brings forward what is happening in America and Africa as well. If you love listening to my discussions, then this channel is the best for you. Just take a minute to subscribe, to like, and to share today's video.
First, it is reckless, it is dangerous. Whenever our country has gotten involved in this kind of regime change and nation building, American families pay the price in blood and treasure. That's what happened in Iraq. That's what happened in Libya. It's happened over and over again. So it's reckless. And then last night, Trump doubles down and says, well, maybe we'll do this in Colombia. Maybe we'll do it in Cuba, even Greenland. And the American people are scratching their heads and saying, this is not what Trump said he would do. This is not what we bargained for. This is not America first. Everyone's saying, what the hell is going on in the White House? And Trump seems to just do this on an ad hoc basis, contradicted by his own people. It is reckless and dangerous. And we have the War Powers Act, which you mentioned.
Right.
I have the right to put that on the floor. Tim Kaine is the sponsor, along with myself and Rand Paul, so it's bipartisan to a degree. And the Republicans must, if there was ever a time they must step up to the plate, this is the time. And they're going to, if they don't, they're going to feel the heat from their...
Venezuela is not surrendering, as both their defense minister and vice president are calling out Donald Trump as a liar. Now, if you missed it today, Donald Trump, during his press conference to discuss the attacks on Venezuela, said that the United States was now in control of the country. And he added that Marco Rubio had a phone call with Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and said that she was prepared to do whatever the U.S. wanted to be cooperative. Well, not too long after Donald Trump made that claim, Vice President Rodriguez made a televised statement saying that Venezuela will not go back to being a colony and that Maduro was the rightful president. And then the defense minister of Venezuela made a televised address and said that Venezuela was ready to resist any U.S. forces or any U.S. occupation. This is far from over. Donald Trump made it seem like this was an in and out thing and we were now in control, but clearly it's not. And like everything else Donald Trump does, it is more bluster, more fanfare than actual results. Stay tuned.
The fact that Maduro was not considered the legitimate president of Venezuela, is that reason enough to justify or at least tolerate this military intervention? And second, how do you feel about the fact that the United States intends to run, well, that's what they say, they intend to run Venezuela or at least coerce the country into submissive behavior? Is this something that you support in order to remove a regime that was hostile to the European Union? Thank you.
Indeed, it's worth recalling that Nicolas Maduro lacked the legitimacy of a democratically elected leader. And therefore, the events over the weekend provide the opportunity for a democratic transition led by the Venezuelan people. Now, we also recalled in this very same context the need to abide by international law and the UN Charter. That's recalled in the statement. It is also recalled in the post from the President. And on your question on running the country, it's obviously for the Venezuelan people to run the country, as it is for any people across the world, wherever and whatever country we're talking about.
This is so utterly pathetic. After Trump overthrew Nicolas Maduro, there have been calls for Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado to take reign in Venezuela. But Trump seems to be against this. Guess why? The Washington Post is reporting that sources confirm that the reason Trump is against her is because she didn't give him the Nobel Peace Prize. One source says if she had turned it down and said, I can't accept it because it's Donald Trump's, she'd be the president of Venezuela today. We're led by a madman.
I want to say right now, the biggest supporter of Donald Trump and the military strike against the Venezuelan drug gangs is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. She says, delete them all. They've been smuggling drugs and firearms into Trinidad for over 25 years. She's tired of seeing her people strung out with drug addictions. She's in so much support of Donald Trump and these Navy strikes against the Venezuelan drug gangs. She said, God bless America and God bless the troops. She has no sympathy for none of the 11 people that were deleted on that little boat with all those drugs. She has no sympathy. Delete them all. Stop smuggling drugs into her country and stop smuggling firearms and human trafficking into Trinidad and Tobago. She's in full support of Donald Trump and the troops and the military. So yeah, if anybody else is not supporting this, Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Kamala is in full support.
So Kamala Harris is now complaining about the United States capturing Nicolas Maduro. She says that these actions do not make America safer, stronger, or more affordable. She says, yeah, Maduro is brutal, but that doesn't change the fact that this action was both unlawful and unwise. She goes on to say the American people don't want this and they're tired of being lied to. And then she says, it's not about drugs or democracy, it's about oil and Trump's desire to play the regional strongman. But I want to focus on this part where she says that the action was both unlawful and unwise. So when Kamala Harris says that capturing Maduro is illegal, the question is, according to who? According to her on Twitter or according to our own government? Not only our current government and administration, but her administration. They treated Maduro as a criminal fugitive. This is Kamala Harris in 2019, saying what's happening in Venezuela is a crisis. The people who have fled Maduro's dictatorial regime deserve safety and protection. As president, I would immediately extend TPS status to Venezuelans. It's the right thing to do. America must show moral leadership in this hemisphere. Oh, and here's Biden, right? Trump talks tough on Venezuela, but admires thugs and dictators like Nicolas Maduro. Yeah, the guy that he just went and captured. Right, Joe? As president, I will stand with the Venezuelan people and for democracy. Yeah, Biden and Kamala were so much with the Venezuelan people and stood so much for democracy that even when there was a multi-million-dollar bounty on Nicolas Maduro's head that was upheld not only under the first Trump administration, but under their administration, which they extended, they didn't do anything to go get Maduro. Oh, and here's Kamala again in 2019. The United States must immediately condemn Maduro's violence against his own people. There is no excuse for this. The Venezuelan military and security forces must demonstrate restraint. Venezuelans deserve a free and fair election and a peaceful transition of power. How did that go, Kamala? How are you going to make sure that their military and security forces are restrained? And how are you going to make sure that their people get free and fair elections with a transition of power? What did you and Joe do, Kamala? Oh yeah, nothing. It isn't illegal or kidnapping when the guy has an indictment and an arrest warrant in the United States. And the U.S. Treasury has identified Cartel de los Sols, the criminal network that Maduro runs, as a global terrorist organization. You don't designate a group and a specific leader who is the head of that group as terrorists and then act shocked when we go through with enforcement. Kamala and Joe Biden have a repeated and long history of calling Maduro illegitimate, brutal, a threat to Venezuelans, and a cause of mass displacement. Her administration acknowledged Venezuela as a humanitarian and regional security crisis. In Trump's first term in 2020, the United States formally indicted Maduro on narco-terrorism charges and offered a massive reward, which would lead to his arrest or conviction, and that policy remained in place under the Biden-Harris administration. They didn't rescind it, they didn't walk it back, and they didn't say it was unlawful. So the facts haven't changed, the charges haven't changed, the rewards haven't changed, the designations haven't changed. The only thing that's changed is who's pulled the trigger. Trump.
Welcome back again to our discussions. And now that we fully understand what Harris said about Venezuela, let's now see how the Black Americans reacted. Their responses were not just political, but they reflect deep engagement with the United States leadership, morality, and international responsibility. Venezuela has faced years of political turmoil, economic collapse, and mass migrations. Millions have fled, creating a regional humanitarian crisis. For many Black Americans, this situation resonates because it touches on broader issues of justice, it touches on human rights as well as leadership and accountability. The diaspora community often sees this crisis not just as a foreign event, but as an example how the United States policies whether active intervention or neglect can affect real human lives. Some Black Americans have praised Harris' statement, seeing it as a bold and necessary statement. They argue that calling out Trump's approach demonstrates moral leadership and a commitment to democracy. Supporters often highlight that foreign policy isn't abstract. It impacts the people's lives, especially vulnerable communities. For example, they point how the United States sanctions or inaction can worsen humanitarian suffering, and they appreciate Harris framing the discussion around human rights rather than political posturing. Others, however, are skeptical. Critics question whether Harris' statement is purely political or designed to contrast herself with Trump rather than offering concrete solutions for the United States. Some wonder if her rhetoric will translate into action, pointing out that statements alone do not give solution to crisis. This skepticism reflects a broader awareness within the Black American community. They often weigh leaders' words against tangible impact, not just media sound bites. These reactions reveal an important pattern. Black Americans actively interpret foreign policy statements in moral, political, and practical terms. It also Harris' criticism on Trump also doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sparks reflection on the United States' credibility abroad and the role of principled leadership at home. Understanding this discussion is not just the beginning. On this channel, we explore political statements, community reactions, and their real-world implications. We break down the news, highlight voices that matter, and also analyze how policies and public opinion intersect, helping you see the bigger picture beyond the headlines. You've been watching Polito Realities. If you feel that the conversation touched you, then leave your thoughts in the comment section. Until next time, be grounded.